Welcome back, guys. So today I want to talk about different mods for the Nintendo 64 to get the best output video quality you can. So today we're going to be talking about RGB versus Ultra HDMI modded Nintendo 64s. Weigh out the pros and cons, kind of talk about prices, what you need, and then do a little video comparison and then comment on it at the end. So to start, let's talk about RGB. So you'll look at both of these systems. One's Ultra HDMI, one's RGB. Obviously, just color difference on the versions that I have here. Aesthetically, nothing's going to be different on the outside of the RGB modded system. On the Ultra HDMI, you will have your little mini HDMI port. So this does need to be case modified to accommodate that. So looking at the RGB mod, there's several different versions, but we're going to talk about the Voltaire mod in particular, which is what I have in this at the moment. The mod is about $30 to get the kit. It's a very easy install. I would call it a novice install. Pretty simple, not a lot you have to do. You can actually have this modded very quickly, with very little experience. If you just watch some videos and tutorials on that, it's pretty simple. Now, what else do you need besides that? SCART cable, obviously. Got one right here. SCART, not all created equal. So you're gonna have to really look at that. Most of the SCART cables I use, I have from Retro Access, but you can find cheaper ones on eBay and Amazon for the Nintendo 64, Super Nintendo, whatever, in the $10 to $15 range. But just to note, I do feel that is an item that you get what you pay for. A lot of times some of these are going to be wired incorrectly. You could have issues with colors and stuff like that. So I highly recommend buying from a reputable source or, importing cables, whatever you need to do. So you're looking at anywhere for cheap, low end, $10, higher end, maybe $40, depending upon the options, the cable length, all that kind of stuff. So that is something to keep in mind. That is a cost. Now, if you're in the US, which is probably why you'd be interested in RGB modding this system, you're gonna have to find a way to output that on your TV. Our TVs in the US do not support RGB, especially if you're using a high-def TV. You're gonna need to find a way to accommodate that, to fix that situation. You're gonna have several options. The cheapest option is getting one of those cheap Chinese HDMI or SCART to HDMI converter boxes. They get the job done, but you do get some input lag. It's probably the worst out of any option out there. They have to be externally powered, that kind of thing. And the video quality is not going to be the best, to be honest with you. I have experienced them, I have used them. They work for the time being, especially if you're waiting to save up to get something more expensive, like the other options we're going to talk about. The next cheapest option is going to be an OSSC. I don't really mean cheap because it still is going to be a couple $100. You're looking at about $200 for this thing. Very excellent, and that's what we're going to be using to output this in our comparison later on in this video. So you have to keep that in mind. Now, besides that, if you buy the mod kit yourself and you're comfortable installing it, cool. That's the best way to do it. You saved some money. If you want to pay somebody to install it, you're looking at, you could shop around for people who are modders and installers of these. A lot of times if they sell the mod, they'll do a lower price to install it and you just send them your system. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit higher if you're not buying the mod from them, if you're just providing it or whatever. So you could look at getting this modded anywhere, around 50 bucks or so. Maybe less, maybe a little more, just depends on where you go, but we're just gonna say 50 bucks for the time being. The other option, and a good option if you're looking for an RGB Nintendo 64, is to buy one pre-modded. Now, pre-modded RGB systems, typically from what I have seen, are going for a bit over 100 bucks, 125 to 150. With that, I say really pay attention to what you're getting, find out what mod it's using, because certain mods, the video quality might not be as good as the Voltaire mod. And also see, the condition of the system, what accessories it's coming with. Is it coming with the RAM expansion pack? All that kind of stuff. If you find solid, nice looking system in the color that you want, newer condition, with everything you need, even maybe an RGB, the SCART cable, expansion pack, controller, all that kind of stuff. I feel the $125 to $150 price range is okay if you just want to get something ready to go. Obviously you're going to spend more money because all day long you can find, especially the blackish gray, whatever you want to call this system, the standard color system, you can find them all day for $40 or less, depending on if it comes with anything. I've bought a couple of them for $20 and the systems were pretty clean, and they actually came with cables and whatnot. So shop around. If you want to buy a system to mod it, you can find a decent price. So if you're paying that $125 or so for a pre-modded system, taking in consideration that the mod is 30 bucks, the time spent to mod it or to pay somebody to mod it plus the cost of a system, is it worth it to you? That's something you got to think about for yourself. So pros, it's cheap, easy install, and you get decent output. And we're going to look at that, like I said, at the after we discuss the Ultra HDMI system, we'll do a little comparison. So the Ultra HDMI system here, $150 mod. The kit is $150. Now, this mod in particular, I don't want to say it's rare, but it's harder to find somebody who's selling it at cost or at the reasonable market price of 150 bucks. A lot of times you find people doing pre-sales on them on eBay for $250, $300 or so, doubling up their money on the mod. I'll put a link in the description for, I believe, Game Tech. They do pre-orders on this mod for 150 bucks. They just did a pre-order a few weeks ago. It's sold out. And typically when you get in on that pre-order, you got to wait a month or two before you get them. Now, with that, like I said, if you're going to mod this yourself, it's kind of an experience install. There's quite a bit more to it. Not necessarily that there's more steps or anything like that. It's just that it's a little more fine detailed as far as the work that has to be done for the Ultra HDMI versus the RGB mod. So keep that in mind. The only other extra you need to have is obviously this thing is using mini HDMI. So either you need to have one of these little mini HDMI to, whatever normal HDMI, whatever the hell it's called. I don't know the technical specifications of the sizes of HDMI, mini, regular, whatever. I don't know. Or get a cable that has mini HDMI on one side and regular on the other side, and you're ready to go. So obviously these are a couple bucks, whatever. You might already have some of these if you've done like Pi projects anyway, or Pi Zero projects. Like me, I've got tons of these things lying around. So that's the only additional thing you need to buy. To get one of these to get one of these installed, if you buy a mod, anywhere between $50 to $100. It's pretty similar. If you're buying the mod from somebody, typically they'll do the mod work for a little cheaper than somebody who'll just do the mod work if you send everything to them. So shop around on that, but make sure you're going to like suggested modders who have a very good reputation for both of these anyway, if you're going to pay somebody to mod it if you're not comfortable doing it yourself. So like we talked about with the RGB modded system, you can find pre-modded systems out there, and the Ultra HDMI is no different. There's new listings on these every day, and the sad thing is that the price is going up and up and up. It's crazy. A while back, they were around $300 pre-modded, because like I said, take into consideration a used Nintendo 64, depending upon condition, the color, the addition of the system, eBay prices anywhere between $40 to $100, like I said, depending on variations and whatnot. And then a $150 mod on top of that. If you go higher priced, not really higher because there's some more expensive versions out there, but say you pay $100 for a Nintendo 64 in the color that you want, the mod's 150 bucks, that's 250 plus to install it, and let's just say 80 bucks. I've seen plenty of people offering 80 bucks for the install. You're looking at, what? If you got the system 100, 250, 330, 330 bucks. If you got a lower end one, you're looking at under $300 as far as the system goes. Keep that in mind. But they went up to around $400 pre-installed a few months ago. Now, and these are not asking prices, these are what they are selling for on eBay. These are going for $600 plus all day long. Kind of crazy for a $150 mod. Supply and demand is essentially what it is. There's a lot of people looking for these, but the one thing I do want to tell you is with the pre-sale that just ended a few weeks ago, it's going to be a month or two, probably April, May-ish, somewhere around there, before the market gets a bunch of more of these kits in their hands. Once that happens, there's going to be a lot of people who are happy to mod systems that they find to try to flip them and sell them. And I think at that point, the price is going to stabilize a little bit. Should go back down. I don't want to say to the $300 range, but probably closer to the $400 range versus the $600 to $700 that I've been seeing them go for as of late. So kind of talked about that, pros and cons. Pros, the video output's great. You only need an HDMI cable, that plugs in the back mini. No extra hardware needed. No really special cables other than, just one of these, couple bucks, whatever. Video output's great, but they're both good on either system. 150 bucks for the mod, $80 to get it installed, or do it yourself, save some money. So kind of looking at that, you can decipher pros and cons with the value and the cost behind these. Definite con is that supply and demand is an issue right now, and if you want to buy the kit, you're gonna spend a premium. You're gonna pay a premium. If you want a pre-modded system, you're gonna pay a premium at this time. Whereas RGB systems are a lot more readily available. The mod is a little easier to find. So definitely things to think about if you're in the market for one of these. So let's go ahead and take a little look, comparison between the video output on both of these. Since the RGB system, I am going to be using the OSSC. I cannot record anything above 3x lines, so that is what we're going to be doing. But to kind of keep it comparable, we're going to be initially showing this at 720p. We will throw in 1080p at the end as well, so you can get a comparison between the three, the line 3x through the SCART, 720 and 1080, and just kind of visual comparison for you guys to kind of get an idea on where your money would be well spent. So let's go ahead, stop talking about it, and take a look. Let's do it.
Start your engine. 3, 2, 1. brakes. Start your engine. 3, 2, 1. Brakes.
Okay guys, so there goes our little video comparison. So I'm sure you could tell Ultra HDMI, you are going to get a slightly better video, picture out of it. RGB still, it looks great going to the OSSC. So to recap, pros and cons, it really boils down to besides the image quality, because Ultra HDMI is going to beat the RGB mod. There is another RGB mod that you can get that I do not have, so I really didn't want to touch on it too much, but there is another option. You can get Tim's N64 RGB mod with the video deblur option, and that will bring it quite a bit closer to Ultra HDMI, quality anyway. That mod is a little more difficult to find. I have not had any luck getting it, but it is out there, so keep that in mind. The biggest issue with Nintendo 64 is that blur. That's just the way the system was designed. And the Ultra HDMI does have an option to take that off. There are other ways to take it off as well, through an EverDrive or a Game Shark, or various other mods. Does it make the system magically look great? No, I say it does not. Even with the Ultra HDMI, there's going to be some games that just don't look as good as you hope they do. It's just something you have to be accustomed to. If you're really into Nintendo 64, these are some options that are out there. For the price, for me anyway, I like the Ultra HDMI. At $150 for the mod kit versus $30 for the RGB mod kit, or higher if you're getting the Tim's kit, if you can find it anyway, the price difference is fairly drastic. But to get the best out of RGB modified, you do have to have additional hardware that costs quite a bit of money, which is bringing you into that price range of an Ultra HDMI system anyway, if not higher. So those are things you have to keep in mind when you're deciding on a purchase between either these two mods or a pre-modded system. So just kind of, weigh that out. What's going to be best for you? If you already have an OSSC or a FrameMeister, then RGB to me is the no-brainer to save you some money, especially if you can modify the system yourself. If you already have the hardware to output, SCART on your HD TV, if that's what you want to do, then the lower cost of RGB mods to me is the route to go versus, you know, HDMI mods, just because the price is so much, you know, it's drastically different. So that's something that you gotta think about. You gotta look at. And I hope this video helped a little bit. You know, it wasn't really a technical thing. It was more so, let's take a look at this and discuss pros and cons. And it more so boils down to price. So whatever you're more comfortable with, I hope I kind of helped here. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Smash that like button, subscribe, do all that great stuff. And with that said, I will catch y'all next time. Peace out, guys. Bye-bye. Boom.